Hello and welcome to another episode of GoodCast, a podcast produced by Goodwill North Central Texas. It's a show where we take a closer look at the story behind the store and highlight successes made possible thanks to the generous donation of everyday people. Today is National Give Something Away Day, so to celebrate, I'd like to ask a question. Do you know what happens to your Goodwill donations after your visit? Most people think that those items get flipped immediately over to the retail floor. And while there's some truth that can be taken from that, the actual answer might surprise you. So today, I'll be taking you through an auditory journey of where your donations might end up. So let's get started. It starts with the item itself. That can be anything from gently used clothing to household appliances to that weird stuff your aunt gave you because she has a fundamental misunderstanding about your interests, and you just don't have the heart to correct her. Pretty much every item we receive comes from the community, through our retail stores or attended donation stations. Currently, we have 39 locations available to drop off items, as well as a home pickup service called Good to Go. With that many options, donations really start to add up, both in numbers of items and in total weight. In 2021, we received over 54 million pounds of donations from 750,000 donors. That's 27,000 tons. That's about the same weight as 675 fully grown humpback whales. These items are taken in by donation attendants, and if you're at a store, they get processed by production team members who price the items, determine what gets sent out to e-com, and sort items into the appropriate categories such as textiles, shoes, electrical, and wares. Items get placed out on the floor and sold, with 90 cents from each dollar going back to our workforce development programs. To explain what that process looks like more in depth for our standalone donation sites, I'm going to play a clip from an interview we did with Cheryl Marshall, who oversees our attended donation stations.
In ADC, we take the donations. The donors pull up, we go out and greet them, we take their donations, and we bring them in, and the goal is to process the donations and sort them. Pre-sort, salvage, soft line, e-com, books, and then they get loaded onto the truck. When the trucks come, transportation brings them back to the warehouse and then sends them out to the different departments. And again, the idea is to get the product turned around and back to the warehouse and out to the stores in order to get it on the floor for resale so that Goodwill can do what they do best, which is to help others. I have 15 donation sites that I manage, and then I have a supervisor that works with me, actually, Lisa, and she helps me keep things going. We visit sites, we do all of the paperwork that's required for HR, so we stay busy, and then we work at the donation sites too. The donors are grateful for what we do.
Once a truck has been loaded up at an ADC or store, it's sent over to our Campus Drive headquarters to be processed. From there, it can end up in any number of departments within donated goods and retail. But before we meet our next team member, let's dive into some history. Goodwill NCT's Campus Drive location has gone through a number of renovations and updates since its doors opened in 1997. Phase 1 of the organization's headquarters initially housed industrial services, which mainly consisted of janitorial services, contract services with third-party organizations, and facility-based contracts, which would later evolve into the STARS program. Today, the lower dock houses our new goods, centralized processing, and transportation team. The facility would expand in 1998 during Phase 2, adding the warehouse, which has functionally remained pretty similar to its original form. This is where we process items, begin our recycling process, and today, the facility houses the outlet, where customers can shop by the pound. Much like traditional retail stores, inventory that's not sold on a timely fashion in our retail stores are pulled from the sales floor. We use a color-coded tagging system, informing retail associates of how long an item has been on the sales floor. After a 6-week cycle in stores, items are pulled from the shelves and returned to headquarters to be sold in our outlet. Shoppers sift through giant blue bins full of product that are rotated throughout the day. This location is very popular for resellers who will often purchase items, repair them, and resell them in their own stores. This model is actually pretty similar to Goodwill's origins back in 1902. We've covered the administrative and workforce development expansion that came in 2001 previously. That's Phase 3. And in 2015, another addition, Phase 4, was made to the Campus Drive headquarters that added an e-commerce department and online book sales. We'll get more into that in a minute. That brings us to the question, what is centralized processing?
Good morning, my name's Amber Head and I'm the manager of Centralized Processing. What we do here in Centralized Processing is we sort through thousands and thousands of pounds of softline donations that are brought here by transportation, and we separate them to men's, women's, and children's and send them to our pricing stations, and they price them, tag them, hang them, and then we send them back to our 8 stores that we produce for: Camp Bowie, Hewlin, Kennedale, Lamar, White Settlement, Barry, Benbrook, Mansfield, and then also the Keller Boutique. I have awesome people. That's a prerequisite for being hired for Centralized Processing. You have to be awesome. And then we're kind of like a huge blended family down here. So
Centralized Processing also provides employment opportunities for individuals going through many of our workforce development programs. These individuals can include folks from our temporary employment services, E-Squared, individuals involved in workplace adjustment training, and more. CP is one of the most enthusiastic departments within all of Goodwill. Let's talk a little bit about Goodwill's online shopping platforms. Goodwill NCT currently utilizes Shop Goodwill, a website that functions similarly to other auction sites as part of its e-commerce sales department. Here's a brief description of the department from our Vice President of Donated Goods and Retail, Rosemary Cruz.
On our e-commerce platform, our customers can find antiques, they can find some collectibles, and some really rare pieces. So there's a variety of ways our customers can shop that platform and find those unique finds.
In 2021, e-commerce employee Alex Juarez stumbled across a very rare find, an Atari 2600 game called Air Raid, which to date only has 13 known copies in existence. The listing went viral among video game enthusiasts and ended up selling on the platform for over $10,000. Here's Alex talking about his reaction to finding the game and how his job helps fund our mission.
I was just doing my job and pulled a bin out and it was full of old Atari games. When I was younger, me and my dad used to watch these like top 10 most expensive video games and stuff like that, and this would pop up all the time on those. I sent a photo to my dad just to see if he knew what it was, and he sent me back a really exciting text. He was like, "You found Air Raid." I thought that was pretty funny, so I took it to my boss just to so we could do a little more research on it. I kind of just make the decision myself if it should be an auction or if we do it buy it now. And I also make the decision of whether or not it's gonna be like a singular game or just a whole lot of games. Of course, this one, I decided that we should probably just do it singularly. I was checking it maybe once a day. I know Julie was checking it. It seemed like every hour she was telling me updates about it. It's kind of surreal. It's more of a piece of history rather than just an expensive game to me. It's weird, you know, knowing that like this will be the only time you get to hold something like this. If it were me buying it, I would probably put it in a case and not do anything with it and just look at it. But I think it'd be cool just to see it be played or something like that.
Some of the processes that our e-commerce employees have to go through to find the treasures can be challenging sometimes, but when they do find those treasures, it's so exciting and so much fun. And we really try to be good stewards of all our donations to maximize the value so that we can in turn continue to support our programs and services.
To put it into context, with the $10,000 earned from the sale of this one item, Goodwill can provide rehabilitation services for 1 year for a STARS participant, provide 20 individuals experiencing homelessness with job placement services and community resources, or help 10 at-risk youth earn their GED and a paycheck at the same time. Goodwill NCT also sells books on Amazon through Fort Worth eBooks. Books sold on this site typically consist of textbooks and specialty books, and every location now is equipped with a book scanning station. Okay, so we've talked about how Goodwill can breathe second life into community donations through retail sales. But what about last chance items? What happens when a donation fails to be purchased through the outlet? For that, we turn to Beth Renault, our Director of Donated Goods. This interview actually comes from a lost episode that we weren't able to publish back in 2020, so I'm glad we're able to give you all some insight into our aftermarket sales and recycling program. Like David likes to say, Goodwill was green before being green was cool, and we are quickly on our way to becoming an organization that is 100% waste-free in order to reduce our carbon footprint and keep items out of the landfill.
Once those items go through the outlet, and if they're not sold in the outlet, then they become what we call a commodity item. So that is where we make the decision, are we going to bale it to sell in bales, or are we going to separate it? And we have buyers who will buy belts, hats, and purses as a lot item, or stuffed animals, or all of our mixed metal. So that's what we call a commodity at that point, and that's when it becomes either salvage or recyclable material.
Okay, so that's where the giant balers and the
Correct.
sorters come in.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And those are huge machines, right?
They are. They make about 1,000-pound bale, and we do maybe 13 textile bales a day. So I did a little figuring, Justin, just to kind of help everyone understand that we do, it is a lot, but when you break that down, that's about 300 or 3,600 pounds per location a day. So when you look at it that way, it is still a lot, because 3,600 pounds of donations is a lot of product to move and to separate and to sort. And it's 365 days a year. So it's coming every day to our 39 locations that accept donations. So it takes everyone who works in retail to move 52 million pounds of donations. So from the donation attendant to our drivers, to our cashiers and our recyclers, we move 52 million pounds a year because we have individuals working for us who want to do that and can and enjoy it.
Does Goodwill, partner with other local organizations to help go through that intake?
We partner with a local recycler who will take our end product, and what they're doing is they're taking it to a facility and they're recycling it there. So the good news is that we're not actually sending that to a landfill. We are sending it to a recycler who has found a purpose for it somewhere else. So that's always a good thing. We've partnered with Service Waste, of course, who is our end recycler. We've had partnerships with TCC. We've had partnerships with Commodity Recycling Solutions, several URT, Universal Recycling Technologies, those type. The city of Fort Worth. We picked up some kilns from TCC, and we had about 50 of them. And there was a school in South Lake that reached out and came and actually purchased 30 of them for about $15 a piece, which saved them a lot of money. So yes, those partnerships like that are always exciting. We had 64 pallets of graduation gear donated that we were able to donate back to another organization in the city of Fort Worth, who in turn disseminated those to multiple other organizations that allowed seniors that couldn't afford to get graduation gear that was donated to them, and then it was donated to some churches, and then donated to some parents' programs where they could participate with their children that were graduating. It was kind of a fun thing to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What are some of the benefits to those partnerships or those outreach programs? Is it just building that sense of community, or?
Yeah, of course. It's building the sense of community. It's building a network of outlets for items that otherwise, I'll use the graduation gear again as an example. The material that robes are made from, it's not recyclable at all. It's that type of material. It's very hazardous. You can't even burn it. You can't even do a waste to energy effort with it, which of course we don't want to do that either. but in some instances that does happen. But that material is just, it's not good for the environment. So to have that kind of networking, to be able to transition it to a new purpose and a new use is just great.
And that's something that you wear like once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
Why do you think our donated goods and recycling programs are so important?
Well, again, if you're asking as an employee of Goodwill, it's the expense savings, right? And of course, every penny we save is put back towards our mission, which is assisting people in our communities find and maintain employment. So that's a pretty important part of why we do what we do in aftermarket and at the store locations. On a personal note, sustainability is important to me. And when I see the difference of trash removal versus recycling at our corporate level, it's somewhat of a heartfelt, oh my goodness, I don't want this to go to a landfill. This is, our environment. This is my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. It's their future. So it's important to me on a personal note, and it's important for Goodwill as well.
If you're interested in doing some summer cleaning and participating in National Give Something Away Day this year, you can always visit goodwillnorthcentraltexas.org/donate and find a full list of locations available near you. Thank you as always for listening to this episode, and thank you for doing your part to make our planet a little greener and change lives at the same time. We'll see you in the next one. You have been listening to GoodCast, a podcast produced by Goodwill North Central Texas. To stay up to date on all things Goodwill NCT, be sure to check out our social media and sign up for our newsletter. And if you have a second, we'd appreciate it if you could share the show with a friend or leave us a review on iTunes. It is the fastest way to help the show grow. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find podcasts.